All right, well, it's time to complete our journey through time and talk about the present, which is Saudi Arabia. When Cristiano Ronaldo announced that that's where he was going next, it kind of, I would say, made a lot of us go, interesting, especially given how he left Manchester United. So plenty to talk about here, which is why we've brought Gab back with us, with myself, Alexis, Rob, and Augie. But before we talk about his move to Saudi Arabia, when that news broke, it was when all of us were at the Qatar World Cup. And in true Cristiano Ronaldo fashion, all the headlines went back to Ronaldo, especially because he was a part of that World Cup, what many of us are assuming is his last World Cup, but who are we to age him? So he was part of it, Gab, and I just kind of want you to chronicle your thoughts of his performance for Portugal at the Qatar World Cup. Because at the end of the day, we were going into that World Cup talking about how, is it a good idea to have him here? Do Portugal need to still rely on him? And I feel like some people were split 50-50. I know how Augie felt. But some people were still saying, I would rather have an aging Cristiano Ronaldo than nothing at all. He is who he is. He's fitter than some of us. But in the end, it started well for him. He scored. And then we were talking about how he was on the bench. So overall, your thoughts from what you witnessed at the Qatar World Cup?
Well, first of all, Gonzalo Ramos thanks you for describing him as nothing at all. He said, I'd rather have Cristiano Ronaldo than nothing at all. It was interesting because obviously that debate was there, right? It had to do with the style of play and some of the other players that had come into the squad. They had so much attacking talent. Gonzalo Ramos was kind of the up-and-coming center forward. But even beyond that, the speed of execution of some of the players around them, you wonder if Cristiano was fit. I assumed, okay, he and Fernando Santos had this symbiotic relationship. They won the Euros together. No way is he dropping Cristiano. And then he did. And, you know, that really came as a surprise. And it would turn out to be Fernando Santos' last World Cup. Cristiano's international career would later continue. But I think that was definitely a blow for him. And I genuinely thought, I was there in the last game before they got knocked out. And, you know, he came on because they were on their way out. He had a couple chances. And you could see how much it hurt him, how much it really affected him to be dropped in these circumstances.
Yeah, it became the Ronaldo show, didn't it? And it has been the Ronaldo show for quite a long time, but it was ridiculous in Qatar because it was obvious that he wasn't the player he was and that he was, you know, Portugal could have won the World Cup without him, not because of him. And I think he held him up a little bit in the sense that he was just too predictable, too immobile. He still scores goals, but not against the top teams. And I think we've seen that ever since. But
his presence counted for something, don't you think? Or we hear about that, how you have this larger than life figure.
No, not some more. I don't think. I think by Qatar, I think opponents wanted him to play because he was kind of a weak link, and it continued, you know, during the Euros. But I think, you know, Ronaldo, great goal scorer that he is. I think by the time we got to Qatar, it was just basically about him adding to his goals tally.
The whole thing overshadowed Portugal's campaign in Qatar. There's the interview, obviously, that ended his time at Man United had come out on a Sunday night after the last Premier League game. Then everyone had flown off to Qatar. The questions immediately were all about Ronaldo. I remember sitting in a press conference with Bernardo Silva, and the first 15 questions were all about Ronaldo. And he turned around at one point and went, is anyone going to ask about the World Cup? We're quite happy to be here, kind of laughing about it, because he knew what was going to come. Yeah. There were stories about a fallout with Bruno Fernandes, because obviously Fernandes was at United, and how that relationship had been strained by what Ronaldo had said about Man United. There was already talk, as Gab said, even before a ball had been kicked, about whether Ronaldo should play or not. Obviously, he started the first couple of games. As the tournament went on, we learned that he was going to get dropped, and eventually did get dropped. Obviously, Ramos played in that game against Switzerland and scored a hat-trick, I think, which kind of compounded this whole debate around, you know, whether Ronaldo should even play or not. Portugal were forced to kind of wheel him out for a press conference at 8 o'clock in the morning at their training camp, miles away from anywhere in Qatar, because basically they didn't want anyone to speak to him. They wanted a situation where they were trying to hide this massive problem as much as they could, but because it's Ronaldo and because of the media were only interested in him and his story and where he was going to go next and what was happening with him, they couldn't do it. And you won't find a Portugal player who will tell you that it affected them in Qatar. But you could tell by speaking to them in the mix zone, in press conferences, they were getting sick of it. And by the end of it, they just didn't want to answer questions about it because they were sick of the entire show.
I think Portugal were also let down by Fernando Santos's handling of this.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have it both ways. You can't be this sort of dark, mystical father figure to everybody, to Cristiano and whatever. Like, if you're going to play that character, and part of that means often playing, for my money, not playing to Portugal's strengths, and then playing a certain brand of defensive football, which he did, in the name of Cristiano and defending Cristiano the whole time. You can't just turn around and go all Judas Iscariot on him in the middle of the tournament. Clearly there was a breakdown in the relationship. And Fernando Santos, by the way, he retired after, as far as I know, after the World Cup. Or certainly, he knew he was going. He'd been there a long time. He's older. I just thought making that decision, doing that U-turn on Cristiano in the middle of the World Cup, when you know that there would have been assurances, that there would have been a certain way of approaching the situation, because that's how he'd handled it for the previous 10 years. I thought that really exacerbated the situation. And a lot of people are going to take pot shots at Cristiano over this. But I think whatever blame there is ought to be shared around.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's what I was thinking. I feel like after, not just how Santos handled the situation, but a lot of shots were taken to Cristiano because of how he handled the situation. And I mean, if it's the one thing we know about Cristiano is that he loves his country. He loves playing for Portugal. He talks about it so much. He's talked about how, he took to the pitch just moments after his father passed away, because it's what he would want to do. It's his country. But this time around, how it was handled, do you feel like, looking back at this World Cup and how it panned out with him and how he took the headlines and how teammates spoke out about it, do you feel like it tarnished his legacy somewhat?
No. I think in the immediate moment, it probably did. People were questioning. But I think when people take a step back and look at Ronaldo's legacy, I mean, he did, although he missed the finals through injury, he did play a massive part in Portugal winning Euro 2016. And, he's won a major trophy. He's not won the World Cup like Messi has, and Messi took a long time to win the World Cup. So I think when the dust settles, Ronaldo is still an incredible player, incredible achievements, the amount of goals he's scored, for every club he's been out for his country. I mean, the goals record he's got with Portugal. I was there that night. It was in Faro in Portugal when they beat the Republic of Ireland, and he broke the world record for goals, and it was just absolutely incredible.
The men's world record.
Yeah, the men's goal record. Yeah, it was Ali, wasn't it, the Iranian player that he overtook? He's now probably 20, 25 goals beyond him now. He's just taking it to a different level. But he just makes headlines wherever he goes, and the amount of times he's rescued Portugal in moments. So listen. It was I was going to say it was a messy end to his career, probably the wrong word, but it might not be the end, because he might still be there in 26. I wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo is playing for Portugal in 26. I'm not saying it's a good thing, or he should be, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is.
I would not be surprised if he is either. All right, well, after...
Sure, one more point on Cristiano's international career, and people have to give him credit for this, I think. After the World Cup, Fernando Santos leaves, and the new coach isn't even Portuguese. It's Roberto Martinez, or Martinez, as people call him in this country.
No. We will say it right.
Roberto comes in, and this was a perfect opportunity. If he wanted to, if he thought it was right for Portugal, to turn the page, to say, Cristiano, I owe you nothing. I'm not from this country. Let's move on. Let's emphasize the other players. Let's restructure everything. They had long conversations. And what did he do? He kept them. He kept them as part of it, and he took them to the Euros and whatever. We can debate whether it was right or wrong, but I think we have to show that it couldn't just be that Cristiano was the problem. If somebody completely different, who didn't owe him anything, came in with license to make a change and chose, no, I want to keep Cristiano in here.
All right. Well, after the World Cup, and actually during the World Cup, because it was when we heard that he had gone back to Real Madrid. He was training at Valdebebas. We were wondering if he was going to go back there, rekindle his relationship with Los Blancos. But then the news came that he was going to be going to Saudi Arabia, and a big money move. And of course, as a marquee signing, which we know the Saudi Pro League is after these days. Augie, you described this as a sad ending to at least his club career, because we know the thoughts or the stigma that is attached to the Saudi Pro League and when players go there. Do you still think that now?
No. I think, to be fair, I think, look, considering the clubs he's played for, Sporting, Man United, Real Madrid, Juventus, the elite clubs of the countries played at, elite European clubs, I did think at the time that you are, tarnishing your legacy a bit by going to Saudi Arabia. But, the Saudi Pro League is what it is. But he's gone there and he's really embraced it. He's really thrown himself into it. He's not just gone there to pick up the money. He has actually scored a lot of goals. He's done everything he's been asked to on and off the pitch. So, listen, it's a different game nowadays. Players don't stay at clubs forever. I think he's gone there and he has made a difference, whether we like it or not, to Saudi Arabian football. He's raised the profile of the country. They've probably got a World Cup on the back of it or part of it. So it's a sad ending in the sense that he's had to take a step down from the elite of European football. But it's a different element, isn't it? I don't know. I do think I was probably wrong to say that. I think it's been an interesting ending to his career.
Whoa. I was wrong to say that. Did Mark Ogden go back? Shock.
He picked status. He picked status over continuing his career in Europe. And
did he have many European options?
We have to remember that the summer before the World Cup, when Erik ten Hag came in at Man United, there was suggestions that he was allowed to leave Man United at that time, and that there was conversation going on behind the scenes about if there was any clubs willing to take him. Chelsea were rumoured to be interested at one point. There was other clubs who had spoken to representatives just to see what it would take to get him out of Man United. So they already knew what kind of offers were on the table. The problem for him was that if he was going to continue his career in Europe, he would have had to take a massive pay cut from what he was on at Man United. And also he would have had to accept a reduction in status, because the World Cup had already shown that at the top level, he probably wasn't that, top level player anymore, that he maybe have to sit on the bench for 6 months, playing 20 minutes here and 10 minutes there. He probably wasn't going to score 40 goals in 40 games. Maybe it was 10 goals in 50 games or something. That's the kind of level he would have had to accept. Saudi Arabia offered him a chance to still be the best player on the pitch. It still offered him the chance to score a goal every game, to be the most important guy on the field, to be the most important guy in the league. And that's what he chose. And obviously the money helped, because the amount of money that was involved in taking him to Al Nassr was staggering. But he chose status. He chose status over continuing his career in Europe's top 5 leagues.
I think there were a few other, I agree with everything Rob said, I think there's a few other wrinkles on this as well. One is, around this time, the relationship with his longtime agent, Uncle George Mendes, kind of didn't, I won't say deteriorated, because it's obviously still there.
Yeah.
But there was a moment of drift. In fact, the person who set up the deal to take him to Saudi was somebody else. And I think there was a sense of wanting some independence, wanting to spread his wings a little bit, maybe explore a new league. The money was part of it. And I think to a normal person, they'd look at this and say, like, it's probably worth, close to $500 million. Why do you need more money? I think to him, maybe it's a way of keeping score. Personally, as a romantic, I would have loved one or two things I wrote about at the time. I would have said either go back to Sporting Lisbon, where it all began, or keep an eye on your little friend. Wherever Messi goes, you go with him. And for one time only, I think, in the history of sport, you create, I don't think it's happened in any sport anywhere. I stand to be corrected. Maybe in rugby league somewhere, I wouldn't know. But like, you have two GOATs coming together in their career and playing on one team. And you know what? If it means you need to go and take a pay cut, hey, I'm going to put this on pay-per-view and give you a slice, and you will make much more money than you're ever going to make in Saudi Arabia.
But that was part of the plan, wasn't it? Because Messi was destined for Saudi Arabia until he wasn't.
Not for Al Nassr.
No, but I mean, it could have happened. It could have happened in the same league. I don't think it was ever going to go to the MLS together, but I think there was a plan whereby they would see out their days.
But how much cooler would it be if they finally teamed up at the end, the two adversaries coming together?
Someone providing an assist to a goal. Oh, my days.
Come on.
He's not a romantic, remember.
Listen,
Inter Miami, if you're listening, come on, somebody out there.
That'd be a 9-man team, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, which one's tracking back and which one's kind of...
Well, same thing in Real Madrid with Mbappe and Vinicius.
It's like watching PSG all over again with Neymar, Messi and Mbappe. But anyway.
But Rob was actually there. I remember we were there doing the Supercopa de España when that news broke too, that he was signing for Al Nassr. And immediately, even though it was an El Clasico going on there in Saudi Arabia, we all went into Ronaldo watch. Everyone started going to Al Nassr, just trying to get a look at the training ground, just trying to get a look at the stadium, seeing what the fans were like. So much so that Rob had to stop, drop, and roll all the way to Riyadh to join us as well. Rob, but you were there. I left just before, but you came in to take in the first game that he was there. What was it like? Just kind of take us back to that moment.
Well, I mean, that entire week was crazy, really, because as you said, there was the Spanish Super Cup, then it was followed by the Italian Super Cup. Then they had Messi over there playing for PSG against a Saudi Pro League select team, which obviously included Ronaldo before he'd actually made his debut for Al Nassr. Al Nassr debut got delayed actually because he had a suspension running from his time at Man United. So he had to wait a couple of weeks before he could actually play. I think it was against Al Ettifaq. And to be honest, his arriving in Saudi Arabia did exactly what they had hoped. I mean, no one had heard of Al Nassr. I certainly hadn't before Ronaldo signed there. I had no idea what colour shirts they were, and then all of a sudden you saw this explosion of this blue and yellow shirts all over the world with Ronaldo's name on it.
Did you get one?
I did.
Come on. Oh, of course.
Of
course.
Piece of history, isn't it?
Had to be done.
And then he turned up at his first game, and he used to see Ronaldo play at Old Trafford and at the Bernabeu in Real Madrid in front of sort of 80,000 people. And Al Nassr Stadium is nice and it's clean and it's it does its job, but it's very compact. It doesn't hold an awful lot of people. It just seemed quite surreal to see Ronaldo playing in that environment. But as I said before, again, for Ronaldo, it did exactly what he'd hoped, because in that first game, it was full of step-overs, it was full of tricks, turns, crowd suing every time that he passed the ball. We'd seen at Man United previously that he wasn't that player anymore. He tried to do step-overs, and he wasn't quick enough anymore, so he was getting whacked into the first row of the stands. For Al Nassr, he was still able to kind of puff his chest out and show that he was still Ronaldo, and the fans loved it. And that's probably exactly the reason why he chose to play for Al Nassr and go to Saudi Arabia, because he got that kind of adoration for the fans again. And he looked reborn in a way, because we'd seen him struggle at Man United, sit on the bench. He kind of got a little bit grey, and you'd see that he was sort of downtrodden a little bit. Certainly World Cup had done that. And he comes out for Al Nassr. The level of the league is not what he's used to and not what we were expecting or what he was used to seeing him in. But suddenly, again, he was the best player on the pitch, which is exactly what he wanted.
Well, with the Saudi Pro League, we know that, of course, since then, they have been able to sign some of the big marquee players. We've seen everyone from Neymar to Benzema to Sadio Mane to Jordan Henderson go and do a U-turn, to even them attracting younger players as well. Is this part of the Ronaldo effect? Now, we know that the Saudi Pro League, Augie, is able to offer contracts and numbers and basically blank checks to players. So it was always going to be a massive attraction for them. But once other players saw Cristiano Ronaldo going there, still playing there, still seemingly having an okay time and reaping some rewards there, do you feel like that kind of set that effect as well for them to attract more of these big names that we've seen go there since?
Yeah, absolutely. If Sadio Mane or Karim Benzema were the first player that went to Saudi Arabia, it wouldn't have had anything like the impact. It would have been, in isolation, I guess. But because Ronaldo is such a big figure and just creates headlines all the time, of course it made a difference. If people think if Ronaldo's going to go, then I'm going to give it a go, especially when they talked about the sums of money. But Ronaldo, that, one of the two biggest names in world football, had chosen to go to Saudi Arabia, and it kind of legitimised it in the eyes of many footballers. So, yeah, I think it made a massive difference. And without him, it wouldn't have been anything like it, isn't it?
Well, we still have yet to see him lift the title, Gab. Does that matter at this point?
I mean, it matters to him because I think he keeps score of everything. And
he's a fierce competitor. But to the world and his legacy, if he doesn't lift one, will we be that bothered?
In Saudi? No, and nobody's going to care, except maybe some Saudi fans. But it doesn't move the needle. That's not how the great Saudi experiment ultimately is going to be judged. He wants to win every game. He wants to score goals. Tell you what, you mentioned his been breaking the men's international record. I think in the back of his mind, he's happy Christine Sinclair has retired so that he's got a target.
Yeah.
I think he needs, 60-odd goals, something like that?
What, international?
He'll go for it.
Yeah.
Internationals?
Why not?
He's nearly 40. Well, he's 40.
Well, but in his mind...
Of course, he's young.
I don't think that's going to stop him. But yeah, I think he embraced, we see this a lot, right? We see some players, we see it with MLS, we've seen it, in the past, we've seen it with Qatar, with UAE. Some players go for a lot of money. I mean, when we talk about the Saudi Pro League having a lot of money, they don't. Yeah. 4 teams have a lot of money, right? Everybody else is signing guys from the Romanian third division, right? That's just the reality of it. We've seen some guys going and saying, here's my check. Thank you very much. But this guy, he went there. He embraced it. He tweets about it. He defends it. He says it's better than Ligue 1. He goes, he cross-pollinates other Saudi-type ventures. He goes to the Live Golf. He goes to the UFC, whatever.
He's a perfect marquee player.
He has really, really embraced that side of it as well and really kind of been an ambassador. Now, does it mean it's going to be a success? I have a lot of skepticism about the Saudi Pro League. succeeding at the level and being able to maintain these levels, but the contribution he's made, I don't think anybody can say anything. And as far as him no longer scoring, is it 54 goals in his first season? Something like that?
50-51.
Yeah, 50-51, right? So let's assume that the level is 30% higher, 50% higher, right?
Yeah.
Yes, divided in half, 25 goals. Not many people in Europe's Big Five league score 25 goals a season.
He's done. I mean, he's probably done for the Saudi Pro League what David Beckham did for the MLS when he signed for LA Galaxy.
It's just MLS, not the MLS.
Okay, MLS. Sorry, Los Angeles Galaxy, the Galaxy. But I just think Ronaldo's had a similar effect. You know, before Beckham went to MLS, it wasn't as big a league outside of the US as it is now, and it's not a huge league now. But it did encourage a stream of players to go over there. And Ronaldo's done the same in Saudi Arabia, probably to a greater effect. And like Gab said, he's done much more for Saudi Arabia than just playing football. He's become the face of Saudi Arabia in many ways. So the whole objective of his move there has been completely paid off in terms of the eyes of the Saudi Arabians.
Well, let me ask you this then, because he's nearing, well, I say nearing, but knowing Cristiano Ronaldo, no targets is too big, Rob, he's nearing or getting closer and closer to 1,000 goals overall for clubs and country. He says he feels like he's not going to make it because it's 80 away. That's weird to hear Cristiano Ronaldo say. But you wouldn't put it past him, would you?
No, absolutely not. And you asked the question before about Saudi Pro League titles and Champions League titles. I think that the individual milestones at this stage of his career mean far more to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he won't admit it. If he was sat here right now, he'd say, of course I want to win the Saudi Pro League title. But if he had to choose between 1,000 career goals and a Saudi Pro League title, he'd choose 1,000 career goals. That's what he'll be in his mind, thinking that he can reach that tally. And, last season with Al Nassr, he scored 50 goals. So if he has another 18 months of that, he gets close, doesn't he? So these are the kind of things that matter to him. They probably didn't 10 years ago, but now he's got so close. It's the thing that's, I would think, is driving him on to carry on. And when it comes to him deciding when he wants to retire, it'll be about how close he is to all these different milestones and which ones matter more to him.
It might be a little bit optimistic, but can you imagine if he breaks at the World Cup?
Oof.
He scores his 1,000.
Yeah.
That's exactly
yeah. That would be, I mean, if he's around 80 away and we're 18 months away, it's going to be tough. But another season in Saudi Arabia, half a season and a half in Saudi Arabia, some Portugal games. He could pick some easy friendlies, I guess. Play San Marino a few times. And, maybe, what a story that'd be. Ronaldo.
Well, then it gets even better than after that, because then somebody tells them, hey, look, Pele, 1,281, why not? And then Arthur Friedenreich, 1343, and then you're home.
Well, and I think that's exactly why we're still talking about him at 40 years old, because he's never been able to say enough is enough. And you're exactly right.
Well, let me ask you this, because we did slightly touch on the World Cup factor, but realistically, in what capacity do you see him there? Now that we are in 2025, it is a little over a year away still, but this is Cristiano Ronaldo. He takes really good care of himself. He may not be able to do the step-overs against top opposition, but in what capacity do you see him there for Portugal, if any at all?
It wouldn't surprise me if he started the first game.
Oh.
Got the World Cup. It wouldn't at all. No, I spoke to Martin. You mentioned about Martinez at the Euros. Martinez comes out and said he's going to start the first game of the Euros. He scored 50 goals for Al Nassr. He's our best goal scorer in the squad. Why would I not start him? And he starts every game in a Euros where everyone else can see that he's not at the required level to play at that tournament. But if he carries on scoring, I think he's got 20-odd goals in 20-odd games already for Al Nassr this season. He goes a goal a game all the way to the 2026 World Cup. Martinez is well within his rights to sit there and go, he's our best goal scorer.
At this stage, you hit the nail on the head. Roberto Martinez doesn't keep his job based on his ability to keep Cristiano Ronaldo happy. He keeps his job based on his ability to deliver results for Portugal. He keeps calling him into the squad because he considers him part of the team. And unless you believe that between now and 2026, that could change. And it might change. His performance could drop. He could get injured or whatever. There's no reason to think he wouldn't continue doing that.
I mean, Roger Miller was 42, wasn't he, when he played for Cameroon in 94? So, it'd be 41 next year, Ronaldo, at the World Cup. So he wouldn't be the oldest outfield player to play. I think he'll be there. I think he's nailed on to be there. Unless he gets injured, he'll be there because he's playing in a league where he's not having to push himself as much as he would do in England or in Spain. He's scoring goals. I mean, obviously, we were all the Euros and we saw that he wasn't as effective as he could be. It was holding Portugal back at times, but I definitely think that he'll be in the squad. Definitely.
I was just going to say that, Gab, because you wrote about that after the Euros, about Portugal's over-reliance on Cristiano Ronaldo and how that ultimately probably cost them a good run. Now, in a bigger World Cup, more chances to get further, I suppose. If you even have Cristiano Ronaldo there, he's such a larger-than-life figure. don't they almost, it's like a crush. You almost automatically over rely on him, whether he's even on the bench or not. So would that be a good move?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wrote about that. I'm not saying he cost them their chance at the Euros, but it was very obvious if you're there in person, you're watching the game, that Roberto wasn't able to build a team where you could have Cristiano, standing around when they lost possession. Basically look, and I don't want to bring Messi into everything, but if you see Messi play at the World Cup like we all did, when the ball's at the other end, when Argentina are defending, Messi is standing around the halfway line, walking around in circles, right? He's contributing zero off the ball. So, which is, Cristiano, I think, probably contributes more than Messi off the ball because he could defend set pieces because he's good in the air. But you have to build a team to accommodate that, right? Scaloni was able to do that with Argentina. Roberto was not able to do that at the Euros with Cristiano. And it really affected him. Not entirely his fault. You have other players who maybe don't do too much work off the ball, like Rafael Leao is the obvious one that comes to mind. But if you can build a structure for a guy who only really becomes relevant when you're in possession. Argentina did it with Messi, and maybe Roberto can do it with Cristiano. He's certainly going to try, but that's why he keeps calling him into the squad.
One quick story on that. Portugal played a Nations League game in Scotland in November in freezing cold. Portugal had to train at Arbroath or somewhere, some lower league Scottish team, to get ready for this game. And Ronaldo, who's already broken the men's international record for goals, turned up on a freezing night in Scotland. The chances are he's going to get booted all over the pitch. Why on earth is he doing that if the idea, the end game, is not to have him at the 2026 World Cup?
Chasing goals, isn't it? That's exactly what he's doing.
Chasing Christine Sinclair.
To your point, though, about building a team around a player that doesn't contribute a lot off the ball, that's basically Man City and Erling Haaland. And he scores the goals that justifies it. And Ronaldo, if he can just score a few more goals for Portugal, that it has in recent years, in big games, then why not? I'd love to see him at the World Cup and play Argentina in the second round. Portugal v Argentina in a knockout game. That'd be great.